Hello, Arizona Lawyer Julie LaBenz here. Today, I want to talk about how to determine what is a fair division of your marital property when you're going through a divorce. Now, of course, I'm coming from the perspective of Arizona law. So if you're in a different jurisdiction, I recommend that you consult with a lawyer in your state so you can make sure that you're on the right track. But in Arizona, we're a community property state, which means everything acquired during the marriage, unless it was acquired by inheritance, it's your separate property or it was a gift, then it's deemed marital property and it's subject to division in your divorce. Now, this is where a lot of people get hung up because they let their emotions control how they think their marital property should be divided. And they really don't have any realistic guideline or guidepost to use to determine what is fair. And this is where I want to empower you with this information about how to get on track and how to determine what's fair in your case. Once you've got your position on the division of property, this allows you to open up negotiations. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that I am a big advocate of negotiating a resolution of your case. Not only does that help move your case forward to a resolution faster than the court can, but it also makes it so that you don't have to take all of the time and effort to learn how to represent yourself at a final contested trial. Additionally, you're not leaving everything up to the judge to decide for you. All right, with that said, let's talk about how to determine a fair division of your marital property. Okay, step one. I suggest you do this using an Excel spreadsheet. And in this Excel spreadsheet, you'll have four columns. The first column is going to be the list of all of your marital property and debts. So think about real estate, mortgage, vehicles, vehicle loans, bank accounts, credit cards, um, investment accounts, the things around your house, the personal property that you have around your house. Um, you know, that's a pretty broad list. Of course, there could be different types of property to add to that, but really you're looking at, first of all, creating a comprehensive list of what is subject to division in your divorce. Once you have that list, then you're going to move to the next column. And that next column is going to be the value of each item on your list. Now, you're going to do the best you can with determining values because values change and some values are more difficult to figure out than others. For example, with your house, you can go to Zillow, you can, do some internet research and see what a current value is, but it's going to change, and a Zillow valuation doesn't mean that's exactly what your house is worth. However, that's a really good starting point. For the value of your mortgage, you can check your most recent mortgage statement, put that as a negative value on your list. And of course, that number is going to change as you continue to make mortgage payments. So you can continually update that amount, but just understand that for purposes of getting an idea of what's fair, you've got to start somewhere. Vehicles, you can go to Kelley Blue Book, see what an estimated value of your car is. And of course, if there's a car loan, look at your most recent statement, see what the balance due is, put that as a negative number in your spreadsheet. With bank accounts and certain types of investment accounts or retirement accounts, you can see what the current balance is and put that in the spreadsheet. But of course, those numbers will change with time. So just keep that in mind that some of these numbers you may need to update as your divorce unfolds. And then with personal property, like your couch, your TV, the things in your kitchen, you'll need to decide how comprehensive or how general you want to approach those things. And it's really on a case by case basis. Some people just pick out certain items that are the most valuable and put those on the list. And then we'll do some internet research to see what a item that's used that's similar is going for online, because this is used property, so you can't use the value of that item as if it was brand new, but it would be a used value. Other people get very detailed in their lists. So really it just depends on what type of approach you want to take. Um, I would definitely recommend highlighting the things that are worth more rather than going through every single item of personal property, but ultimately it's up to you. Every item will need to be divided one way or another. So having a detailed list in that regard could be helpful. But those longer lists, sometimes that's more about just determining who gets what and not necessarily valuing each item. But again, it's up to you about what approach you want to take with those particular items. Now, once you have your list of assets and debts, and once you've put in your values, I'm going to walk you through the next steps, but understand that certain items you may not have a value for. For example, if your spouse has a retirement account and it's a 401k and you don't have access right now to their 401k account statement or to see what the current balance is, you may not have a number for that. You could put a number in as a placeholder and highlight it. But what I'm getting at is each item that you aren't able to determine a value for, that's what you're going to want to seek out, either through asking your spouse to produce that information or sending out a discovery request to obtain it, either through a subpoena or a request for production. You could send out a letter asking that that be produced. If you haven't gotten to the point of your initial disclosure statement, once the initial disclosures are shared, that should include that type of information. So just keep in mind that you may not have everything to complete your list right now, but do the best you can and continue to revisit this spreadsheet as your divorce unfolds. Okay, so you've got your list of assets and debts. The next column, you've got the values. And from there, you're going to add up the value column and you're going to get an overall number for the value of your community property and debts. Now, if you have more debt than assets, that would be a negative number. So just understand it is possible your number could be negative. If your assets are worth more than your debts, you'll have a positive number. Whatever that number is, divide it by 2, and that is roughly the amount of value that each spouse should leave the marriage with. All right, now you're going to have column 3 and 4, and each of those columns are going to be one for you and one for your spouse. So the first column would be to wife, the second column to husband, or vice versa. Then you're going to go through each item and you're going to take the value of each item and you're going to put it in the column for who you want that item awarded to in the divorce. So, for example, if you want to keep the house, you put the house and the mortgage into your column. If you want the house to be sold, you can divide the value of the house and the mortgage in half and put 50% of the value in your column and in your spouse's column. You're going to go through each item of your community property and you're going to assign it to each spouse until you've assigned everything. Then you're going to add up the column for you. You're going to add up the column for your spouse. And you're going to see how close or far away that number is from the 50-50 division. So let me just use some simple numbers to better illustrate this. If your total community property is worth, for example, $200,000, you divide that in half, you're each entitled to roughly $100,000 of value. So then let's say you do your division and it shows that your column has $150,000 and your spouse's column has $50,000. So you can see that to get each of you to that 100,000 as the 50-50 division, that means there's a $50,000 difference between you. If your spouse got 50,000 more, they'd be at 100,000. If you had 50,000 less, you'd be at 100,000. So there's a couple of ways to deal with this. Number one, you can offer what's called an equalizer payment, which would be I'll pay you 50,000 to equalize out the values. Or you can go back into your proposed division and make some additional changes to seek to get the numbers closer to 50-50. Okay, so that is what I call a property division spreadsheet. And this is a great way for you to determine what a fair division of your property is. This is also a great exhibit for you to use at mediation, in settlement negotiations, and if you have to proceed to trial, this is a great exhibit to use at your trial. All right. I'm Arizona lawyer Julie LaBenz. I hope that you found this helpful. If you have any questions, you can put those down below in the comments. I do go through those questions and I use those as potential topics for future videos. So feel free to engage with this video. If you liked this information, I would love it if you give me a like or if you subscribe to my channel. Overall, I wish you all the best with your case, and thank you so much for watching.